This is 1% History's video of the top 10 most infamous and notorious members of the Hells Angels. There are countless notorious members of this most infamous of clubs, but in this video I will be going through my own top 10. Some you may have heard of and some may be new to you. As with all of my videos, I encourage all who watch to correct anything you see that you disagree with in the comment section. My goal is to present accurate facts and accounts, and I am always willing to admit when I get something wrong on a video. That being said, thank you for watching and let's get into our list. Number 10 on our list is the infamous Otto Freely. It has been rumored that Otto was the original founder of the Angels, though this has been denied by many people including himself. Though it is certainly a mystery, as some sources claim that he was absolutely the founding leader of the club, claiming that he was a member of the Pissed Off Bastards and was even present at Hollister in 1947. Whatever the case may be, whether he broke away from the Bastards and started the Angels or joined the Angels shortly after their inception, one thing that is certain is that he played an intricate role in the early years of the club during his time in the Berdoo charter. He became the president of Berdoo in the early 60s and rode alongside such legends as Buzzard from Berdoo and Pooh from Berdoo. Otto was born in Madison, Wisconsin in 1931 and moved to California in his teens. His story is steeped with myth and legend. If even half of the things said about him are true, then he has certainly earned the title of legendary outlaw. He passed away in 2008 of natural causes. Ride in Paradise Hells Angel Otto. Number 9 on our list is legendary Hells Angel Pooh from Berdoo. By the mid-1960s, Dougie had earned himself a reputation as a hard-partying true embodiment of the American outlaw biker. He began his club career as a member of the Galloping Goose before becoming a San Bernardino Hells Angel in the early 60s. His brother in the Angels, the legendary Buzzard of Berdoo, recounted in an interview a time at a party that Dougie tricked him into turning his head to look at something across the party just long enough for Dougie to piss all over his leg. Buzzard got him back a few years later when Dougie had been working near Buzzard's house for a period of time and never stopped by to say hello, so one day Buzzard went to a local feed store and bought a live chicken that he placed in the cab of Dougie's work truck overnight, leaving feathers and chicken shit everywhere. The following day, Buzzard called Dougie and asked him how he was doing. Dougie relayed the story of finding a chicken in his truck and how upset he was that there was chicken shit everywhere. Buzzard replied with, "That's appropriate considering it was pretty chicken shit of you to be working next to my house all this time and never stop by to say hello." Pooh was involved in countless exploits as an angel throughout the 60s. When a national television station showed up wanting to do a special report on the Angels, Dougie was front and center. The interview he did and the photos taken of him during that time have become immortalized lore within the world of motorcycle clubs. He was a good friend of Big Daddy Roth and countless other big names in California in the 60s. Pooh passed away in February of 2019, leaving behind an immortal legacy in the world of 1% motorcycle clubs. Ride in Paradise Pooh from Berdoo. Number 8 on our list is the infamous California heavyweight Hells Angel Doug the Thug, or Doug the Thug was the early embodiment of the type of angel that struck fear in the hearts of enemies. Standing over 6 feet tall and almost 300 pounds of unapologetic California Hells Angel, ready to take care of business at the drop of a hat. He spent a number of years of his life behind bars in the state of California, and one of his greatest accomplishments, according to longtime Ventura Charter President George Christie, was playing a major role in setting an example, laying down the law, and ultimately brokering deals with various organizations throughout the California penal system so that the Angels could walk the yard freely and live well on the inside whenever they were forced to do time. Ex-convict John Abbott says in an interview that he served time with Doug the Thug and that Doug once broke a pair of handcuffs in half in a fit of strength. He also made the claim that Hells Angel legend Sonny Barger had proclaimed Doug to be the most violent individual he'd ever met. By all accounts, Doug the Thug was a Hells Angel that ate, slept and breathed Hells Angels and lived every day of his life as a loyal brother and soldier for his club. He passed away in 1986 and is buried alongside many of his Oakland Angel brothers. Ride in Paradise Doug the Thug 1%er. Now on to number 7 on our list is the California counter-culture icon Terry the Tramp. Born in 1939, John Terence Tracy, better known as Terry the Tramp, was a Rolling Stone from an early age. Men like Tramp were unknowingly tasked by the universe to be the early blueprint of the California outlaw biker. He would embody and show the entire world just exactly what it meant to be a one-percenter. Whether he knew of this infinitely important responsibility or not never mattered in the least, because the Tramp effortlessly lived every second of his life as the genuine article that he was. Terry was the type of man that was able to build a bridge between his club and the youth of his generation by showing them that he was just like they were. Some of his brothers were imposing and even violent at times, but all the Tramp wanted was a good time. He was a true jack of all trades in the club world. As cool and jovial he was most of the time, when it came to defending his brothers and/or his club, he could become just as dangerous as anyone else. He also had a knack for making money. A true mover and shaker of his time, enjoying friendships with other counterculture icons such as Ken Kesey and Timothy Leary, as well as countless musicians from Janis Joplin and the Grateful Dead to Jefferson Airplane and many others. He also tried his hand at acting alongside Sonny Barger in the cult classic Hell's Angels '69. Throughout his life he accumulated countless charges from the California authorities, the vast majority of which were totally bogus and virtually none having to do with violence of any kind. Terry the Tramp is a true immortal California legend whose name will be remembered forever and whose ghost still flies free through the California desert on his old hardtail knucklehead and a mean dark pair of shades. He died as he lived, flying high as a Hell's Angel. Ride in Paradise, Terry the Tramp, one-percenter. Number 6 is no other than the Sons of Anarchy superstar Hell's Angel Rusty Coons. Rusty has led a very interesting life. Standing at 6'5" with enormous muscle-bound arms and long golden hair, he is a mountain of a man with the look of a true Viking. He was a founder of the Orange County Charter of the Angels and later became its president. He later moved and became president of the San Fernando Valley Charter of the Angels. This is a legendary charter, as it was at one time the result of the patching over of California legends, the Satan Slaves. Rusty was arrested and went to prison in 1999 as the result of a raid by law enforcement who alleged that Rusty was part of a multi-million-dollar drug enterprise. During his time in prison, a campaign was started in his name called Free Rusty. Upon his release, he received a custom chopper from his dear friend California custom chopper builder Jesse James. Then, at a toy drive in the Valley one year, Rusty met the creator of the show Sons of Anarchy, and sometime around 2009 made his first appearance on the show as Rain Quinn. Rusty also had a custom bike building operation of his own in California called Illusion Motorsports. He's also recorded and released a lot of his own music, much of which he wrote while in prison. Like so many one-percenters, Rusty is an incredibly talented artist, musician, businessman, and a righteous brother to all who wear his club's prestigious patch on their back. Ride on, Rusty. That brings us to number 5 on our list. The one and only California outlaw legend, George Christie. I put George in the middle of the list because, as far as I'm concerned, George isn't playing second fiddle to anybody. He's a legend all his own. But there's only one number 1 spot, and when it comes to the Angels, I think everyone knows who will be in that spot. So I saved this spot for George Christie. Dead center. A legend all his own. And make no mistake about it, George is and always will be a California Hells Angels legend. Having lived through and participated in multiple major wars on the streets of California between the Angels and various other organizations, he's seen and been through more than the vast majority of people combined. He's owned many successful businesses. He's participated in many successful ventures in film and the media. He's told his story through interviews, podcasts, shows, and documentaries. He's authored many books. He carried the Olympic torch through Ventura, California. He was charged with a number of crimes through the years, many of which he was able to beat in court with sheer cunning and intelligence. It's that intelligence and ability to reason that George will ultimately be remembered for, in my opinion. He was always an ambassador for his club as well as a peacekeeper. In just about every war he was involved in, it was always through his efforts that peace agreements were able to happen. He once arrived all alone and completely vulnerable to a location where the famous leader of the rival Outlaws Motorcycle Club, with whom the Angels were at war at the time, Taco Bowman, and several of his outlaw brothers were staying, and surprised Taco with a visit and a peace proposal. It was at that meeting that the historic photo of the two was taken side by side. Similar meetings occurred between George and the Mongols as well. And that is how George will be remembered in the world of 1% motorcyclists, in my personal opinion. He will be remembered as a true advocate of his club and his brothers, who used reason and intelligence to find middle ground with rival organizations time and time again. He's exactly the kind of leader you want leading your motorcycle club. And though his tenure as a Hells Angels president was abruptly cut short by his leaving the club and ultimately being put out on bad terms, his actions and his record speak for themselves, and that is something nobody can ever take from him. Ride on, George! On to number 4. Actor, showman, stunt double, bodyguard to the stars, and longtime Hells Angel, the one and only Chuck Zito. Chuck Zito embodies another side of the legendary club. He is the quintessential New York Italian muscle man and was a proud member of the club's legendary New York City charter. Former heavyweight boxer, renowned street fighter, and self-defense instructor. Bodyguard work came very naturally to Chuck, and he excelled at it, which then led to other opportunities in Hollywood, from stunt work to acting. Like his club brother Rusty Coons, Chuck Zito also had a starring role on the show Sons of Anarchy. If there was one club that played a major role in the production of that show, it was undeniably the Angels, and quite frankly, I don't think it could have been done without them. Chuck Zito arrived in season number 5 playing Frankie Diamonds. The role fit him like a glove, and the show had its most successful season to date at the time. Chuck Zito was a longtime friend and brother to the legendary Sonny Barger, and rode beside him as was his dream to do so, which he stated in an interview he did in Sonny's Arizona home. In all honesty, Chuck and the New York City crew he was part of could easily fill up an entire video with material all by themselves, as there are countless legendary stories regarding Chuck, the 3rd Street crew, its formation, and the many things that have occurred involving them over the years. In the 90s, Chuck was known as the bodyguard to the stars. He did bodyguard work for everyone from Pam Anderson to Sylvester Stallone. He played Chucky the Enforcer Pancamo on the HBO series, as he's also starred in a number of hit movies, and is said to have been the angel that facilitated the role of several Hells Angels in the movie A Bronx Tale. He's also a custom bike builder and has built a number of award-winning show bikes. As his close friend Howard Stern has said many times, "I wish I could wake up and be Chuck Zito for a day." No longer part of the club, he's still loved and respected, and as far as I'm concerned is and always will be one of the most infamous Hells Angels to ever wear the patch. Ride on, Chuck Zito. Number 3 on our list is one of Chuck's original mentors in the club world, the New York City Hells Angels icon. When in doubt, knock them out, Big Vinnie Girolamo. This 320-pound juggernaut became a New York City legend at a young age as a relentless street fighter and devout member of the New York City Aliens Motorcycle Club. A club that would later disband, with most patching over into the Angels. A loyal brother who followed the lead of legendary New York City leader Sandy Alexander, Big Vinnie was a Hells Angel to the bone and made an impression on everyone that laid eyes on him. He joined the Marines as a young man, where his legend only continued to grow until he became an Angel in his 20s and truly etched his name into history. He could be seen on any given day out in front of the clubhouse on 3rd Street next to a line of beautiful choppers, holding his pit bull Satan on a leash in one hand and a beer in the other. He was present in Cleveland when a dozen or so Angels laid waste to over 100 members of a club called The Breed. He explains this in the major cult classic film he appeared in called Hells Angels Forever. There were many Hells Angels that appeared in that movie, but as was the case most of the time throughout his life, Big Vinnie stole the show. Standing over 6 feet tall and over 300 pounds, covered in tattoos with no shirt on underneath his leather Hells Angel colors and a long red bandana wrapped around his head. Leather cuffs with spikes and fish hooks wrapped around his forearms. He was an imposing figure, to say the least. Then when he opened his mouth to speak, and what came out was a deep and raspy voice thick with a New York Italian accent and an unforgettable laugh. It's safe to say Vinnie stole the show just about everywhere he went. True to his nature, Big Vinnie met his end shortly after getting into a hard-hitting fight with another angel in California, though some people say the fight had nothing to do with Vinnie's death. No matter which way you slice it, Big Vinnie Girolamo is an American legend and will never ever be forgotten. When in doubt, knock them out. The best never rest ride in paradise. Big Vinnie 1%. Now on to number 2 on our list, the legendary longtime leader of the fabled New York City Hells Angels of the late 20th century. Sandy Alexander. Sandy, like many other legendary leaders in the club world, had a true understanding of the philosophy associated with American 1% motorcycle club culture. This, along with his incredible leadership skill, can be seen in an interview he did as a very young man, more than likely just out of his teens. At the time of that early interview, he was already a president in the legendary New York City Aliens Motorcycle Club, and even back then you can see clearly that his love and understanding of the brotherhood and freedom of the 1% Motorcycle Club was something that greatly inspired him and assisted him in his leadership. He was a natural leader from early on, but it was the understanding of the philosophy associated with the fraternal order he had come to lead that truly set him apart, as it did with a number of other leaders in the 1% world. Sandy was a boxing and martial arts expert and instructor, and legend has it that the bitter war between the Angels and the legendary Chicago Outlaws was started by a fight involving Sandy. The story goes something like this. Sandy was a member of the Aliens before he became an Angel when the Aliens disbanded. One of his brothers in the Aliens was a longtime friend of Sandy's that went by the name Greased Lightning. When the Aliens disbanded, however, rather than following his brother Sandy and joining the Angels, Greased Lightning chose to join a club in Chicago called the Outlaws. There was no problem at first, though there may have been some ill sentiment toward Lightning by Sandy and the other Aliens gone Angel. Then one New Year's Eve, the Angels were throwing a party that Greased Lightning attended. No one knows for sure, but it was likely something that had been building up for a while. Whatever the case, the story tells of Lightning making very inappropriate sexual advances toward the wife of a Hells Angel, which led to Sandy beating Lightning within an inch of his life right there in the party. Lightning's beating then sparked the alleged killing of multiple Angels that were allegedly lured into a trap by Outlaws member Big Jim Nolan. This then led to war allegedly being declared and roaring on for many years after. Sandy appeared on the Geraldo Rivera Show and was also one of the leading roles in the film Hells Angels Forever with Big Vinnie, Chuck Zito, and many other legendary Angels. A brilliant leader and tactician, the work that Sandy did during his tenure as president of the Hells Angels in New York City. The bonds he created, the policies he implemented, the agreements he struck are in large part still being felt by every club in the New York City area to this very day. The heat came after Sandy and countless other Angels in national sweeping raids for alleged drug charges in the 80s, where he ended up doing some time behind bars. The club moved forward, and little is known about what happened to Sandy after he was released a number of years later. He passed away in the early 2000s, and one thing is certain when it comes to Hells Angel Sandy Alexander. His legend will live on in the streets of New York City for many years to come. Ride on, Sandy! Gone but never forgotten. And now we've arrived at the number 1 spot on our list of the top 10 most infamous and notorious Hells Angels of all time, and I am more than positive that no one ever had any doubt as to who this spot would be going to. The one and only legend of all legends. American icon. Ralph. Sonny Barger. As I mentioned before, certain leaders in the world of motorcycle clubs are able to lead so effectively because they have mastered the philosophy associated with the anti-establishment-based fraternal culture of American outlaw motorcycle clubs. They recognize something in the philosophy that is infinitely priceless and powerful. True freedom and brotherhood in their purest forms. Chief, as he was known to his Angel brothers, embodied this philosophy of true freedom and brother, and he had the charisma and knowledge necessary to put it into practice, thus creating the most powerful and notorious club to ever grace the highways of California and ultimately the world. There are so many stories about Sonny that I could be here all day telling them. So I will do my best to keep this as short as possible. Sonny was born in Northern California in 1938. He forged his birth certificate and joined the military as a teenager until they found out, and he was honorably discharged. In 1957, alongside his brother Boots, he founded the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels. In those early days, the various California chapters in some cases weren't even aware of one another's existence. Though it wasn't long before the entirety of the club had met and been left in awe of Sonny and his magnetism. An organization is only as strong as its leader. With Sonny leading the charge, the Angels became the strongest club to ever do it. He showed the men he called brother a level of brotherhood like nothing they had ever seen before. He selflessly gave every ounce of energy to his club and being there for his brothers. In the movie Hells Angels '69, Sonny can be heard saying, "If you're with us, we'll go all the way for you. We'll even go to jail or give our lives for you." It was this selfless and undying level of brotherhood that set Sonny apart from the gate. But with his leadership and guidance, that level of selfless and true brotherhood became the standard within the club. In Berkeley, California, during the Vietnam War in the '60s, Sonny opened himself and his club up to the national spotlight when he and his brothers stood proud to defend the war effort from the protesters, duking it out on the streets of Berkeley with the protesters. The Angels may be a lot of things, but one thing they've always been was American patriots. After the clash with the protesters, Sonny promptly showed the world exactly who he and the Angels were when he called a press conference and volunteered himself and his club brothers for behind-the-line duty in Vietnam. An unprecedented move that would immortalize Sonny and leave everyone from law enforcement all the way up to the bigwigs in the White House with their jaws dropped. That's Sonny. A decisive and aggressive leader that knew just how to strike the right place at the right time to get the result he and his brothers sought. It wasn't long before the powers that be labeled Sonny and his ability to inspire absolute loyalty and devotion in all he encountered a threat. And when the powers that be deem you a threat, then it's only a matter of time before they hit you where it hurts. The government's resources are never ending. But while the government was planning their attack, Sonny was making moves of his own. Hollywood had also caught wind of Sonny's exploits, and it wasn't long before multiple offers were on the table for roles in movies as well as other lucrative ventures in the entertainment industry. Sonny appeared in multiple films in the '60s and '70s, and his legend continued to grow with every passing day. The government always keeping a watchful eye, waiting for their opportunity to strike. People in power don't like competition. In the 1970s, when the Angels allegedly went to war with a number of other powerful clubs, that's when the government saw their chance and they went after Sonny and the Angels. They arrested Sonny on possession of a controlled substance with intent and sent him to prison. He did almost 5 years and was paroled. Shortly thereafter, the government attempted to hit the Angels with a RICO trial as an entire club, which was something that had never been done at the time. But after millions of dollars spent by the government and several years of countless man-hours, it was declared a mistrial, and it was decided that it would be impossible to charge the club in its entirety with RICO, as there is no centralized leadership structure. Each charter is its own entity, and there is no national or international leader. The mistrial of the RICO charges, though very costly for the club, it was ultimately a victory in some people's eyes, because it meant that RICO was off the table for the club as a whole from that day forward. Several years later, however, a dirty rat of an informant set Sonny up to fall by getting him on tape allegedly talking about going after a rival club using explosives. Sonny did almost 4 years in prison in Arizona. Upon his release, he decided to make a move into Arizona by offering to patch over the biggest, baddest club in the state known as the Dirty Dozen. Sonny built his Cave Creek Nomad charter in Arizona, and Arizona became a new home for the Angels. Sonny wrote a number of books, produced a number of movies, and proudly wore his Hells Angels patch on his back until the day of his passing in 2022 at the age of 83. Men like Sonny come along once in a lifetime. A true legend never dies. I will end this video with a few lines from the song Ride on Sonny by Johnny Paycheck. That club would ride straight into hell as long as Sonny was there stoking the fire. So ride on, Sonny. Lord knows I love you and wish you well. Ride into history with your angels of hell. That concludes our list of the top 10 most infamous members of the Notorious Hells Angels. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to catch all my latest content.